Hello, happy day. In this episode, we are going to be discussing Real Housewives of Potomac. And as a Ladam, as with every passing episode, it's tough out there for us. So thoughts and prayers to all the Ladams. I'm with you. I still ride or die for Karen, but it's getting tough.
I think this is going to be a rough season for Karen. That being said, when these rough seasons happen, usually the next one's so much better. So, maybe this is a good thing for Karen. Maybe
I
it's
will
just going to
say, and in watching her and having that conversation with Mia on their way to the cast trip, you know, I don't understand. I know lawyers, we've seen a lot. I understand if you can't talk about the specifics of your case, but I don't get why she couldn't just say, I made a mistake. I'm going to learn from it. I can't discuss the details of my case. Thank you for thinking of me. Like
Yeah, I mean,
that's a part I struggle with her.
well, because even with Ashley, she said, I'm thankful I didn't hurt myself. Ashley was quick to point out, or others. And then she did say, or others, which I feel like that. I was like, Karen, you should say, or others first. Like, I'm thankful I didn't hurt anyone else, including myself. But like, she was able to say that. So, like, in some way, she was admitting, like, someone could have been hurt. I
Yeah.
think she doesn't have to admit fault. She doesn't have to say, I was drunk. She doesn't have to say, she could just say, I wasn't in the right frame of mind in my life, grieving my parents, all the things to be driving. And it's something I'm working through. I just feel like it's like the deflection is so much. And I know people keep going back to this, like, why is Shannon being treated so differently versus Karen? And we said before, maybe that just like Shannon's case was a little bit more closed. She was already like getting the breathalyzer in her car. It was already done with. But it does feel a little bit more like Shannon is embarrassed. She is remorseful. We don't really have that as much with Karen.
Yeah, absolutely. I do feel like Shannon, we know she's guilty of what she did. There's no denying it. I mean, it went all over on TMZ. So I think that's a really good point. Okay, but one moment I am so happy that we're getting in this episode as the best friend of me. So they arrived to this house. A couple of things I'm a little confused by. The number of employees just touring with the rooms. Did you notice that? There was like a different person for every room.
Yeah, there was like a concierge. I don't know what you want to call them. Like like it felt almost like a assistant, like
Yeah.
maid. So it was like what, but each person had like an assistant assigned to them. Which cool, I guess. Was that really necessary? The house wasn't that big. They're not like each in their own wing or like separate like villas coming into a shared space. Um, yeah, but the place, I mean, it looked beautiful, but I
It's a
do feel like,
beautiful lake house, but it just didn't match the vibe, in my opinion. I was just like, "What is happening?" Or at least have, like, a welcome beverage if we're gonna if you're gonna be
yeah, like
showing
what
in
was
their
their
room.
point? To just show them where their room was? Like they weren't helping them unpack. They weren't, there was a chef
Exactly.
already making the meal. It felt like maybe we could have used that budget towards a house with more rooms or more
Yes.
bathrooms. Like I was just kind of like, I would have allocated the budget differently had I been the person responsible, but that was Mia's call.
Okay, random question that this kind of like I'm thinking about this. On girls' trips, now that we're, headed towards 40, a lot of the women on this cast are our age or above. How do you feel about sharing beds? Obviously, you and I used to share a bed until my snoring.
I'll say I'm
Uh,
good with it. No. Um,
until my snoring. But how are you with sharing, like on a girls' trip? Like, what's kind of your perspective on that?
I think it depends on like the group size. So I think if you're like 4 or 5 or more people, someone's probably likely going to have to share a bed just because like we're all not about ready to drop like 5 grand each on just the house. Like if you're thinking about like a girls trip, particularly like beach or lake properties, it's just like it's expensive for the to have that much land to build that big of a house. So I'm okay with it, but I also think it needs to be almost like stated from the beginning, like there are not enough rooms for everyone to have their own room. Some people will have to share a bed or some people will have to share a bathroom. Like I think you should know going into it, or there should be people like I look back to like Lucy's bachelorette party and you and I shared a bed and we're like, we share beds all the time. We're totally fine with it. we were staying in downtown Chicago. Like to get a 5-bedroom VRBO there was going to be $1 bajillion. So like, I just think it needs to be more like discussed and everybody's cool with it. And in this situation, I feel like we didn't necessarily do a good job of saying that up front, especially
Also, the bunk bed situation. I think for me, I'm cool with it as well. I think as long as there's like a large bed, preferably a king. I think at the end of the day, yes, we'd all prefer our own room, our own bathroom. But I think having fewer girls' trips as you get older, it's like kind of the novelty of getting together and getting dressed together. Like I don't mind it so much as much, but I would mind bunk beds. I wouldn't be as giddy as Stacy was when she saw them. I mean, talk about being a good sport, but I wouldn't be thrilled with the bunk bed situation.
no, I would be annoyed by a bunk bed. And just that whole setup, that whole room I would have been annoyed with. It'd be different if it was like a room with 2 queen beds. I'm like, all right, I got a bed to myself. Or I'm sharing a king, but we have like the primary suite. I'm like, oh, okay, you know, like it's a little give and take here. The reason why I would probably be annoyed with a bunk bed is I'm away for us, like we're away from our kids. We like that's a big ask. Like, you know, it's hard solo parenting. You and I have done it, you know, our husbands have done it, but it's a big ask. So that time away, you want it to make it like the most fun, the most special, the most relaxing. You want to get the good sleep. To me, a twin bed, particularly bunk beds, doesn't scream comfort.
No,
Luxury.
they're so uncomfortable. No, they're uncomfortable. I'd much rather share a bed with someone than have my own bed as a bunk bed.
Yeah, even if I'm on the bottom, I just like it's no.
Nope, thank you. But how do you feel about sharing bathrooms? So I did get a chuckle. Good job, Mia, at La Dame and Jizzy having to share bathrooms. So they have their own bedroom, they have their own sink, but they're sharing a toilet and a shower.
I mean, I had a Jack and Jill bathroom growing up. Oddly enough, well, actually, my younger sister, God, she went through like weird phases where like she was afraid of like the dark and then she wasn't. So like I had to switch rooms so much for my younger sister. And this is the epitome of a middle child. You're just like, whatever. And we're just like, I'm like ping ponging throughout our house. But the room that was on the other end that sometimes she was afraid to sleep in, sometimes she wasn't throughout her life, had a Jack and Jill with the guest room. And I don't know. I didn't mind it, but maybe because like we didn't have guests all that often. And I wouldn't have minded. Like my older sister, when she came home, would stay there. But so maybe because I grew up with one, I don't think it's that bad. I don't know. I mean, sharing a toilet, whatever. Like I get like Karen's like, oh, I can't like go boom, boom, go poop. But I'm also like, we are all grown women. Like I feel like if I go on a girls trip and we all have like our coffee or something in the morning, like there have been moments like me and I'm like, my coffee's hitting. I'm going to go upstairs or I'm going to go back to my room.
Perfume. It's like an acknowledgement. I mean, everyone poops. It happens. I did chuckle. It was La Dame behavior, but being like, can't say pee, urinate. No one says that. That sounds worse to me personally.
100% urinate to me. I don't know. It just sounds way more gross than pee. Maybe because I just feel like it's just so many extra syllables. When my kids were, this might also be a boy mom thing. I know people get mad when you say that, but like when I finish this, girl
you
moms
also have all boys, so
right.
You are by nature.
Well, like I'm not trying to like be this show. I know, like there's a whole persona, like a stigma of boy moms. I don't know. Like, yeah, we'll do a whole other show on it. But I only have boys. I would avoid saying the word pee, anything that ended like even saying TP, because kids, mainly boys, go through a phase where like pee, like my pee, and then like it turns into this whole thing. So I used to say, do you need to go tinkle? Do you need to go potty? Because like the word pee, then all roads lead to talking about your penis when you have a boy. So, but I like there's nothing wrong with like growing up as a girl. We would say I have to pee.
Yeah.
Like
I say pee, we say vagina in my household. We'll say penis. It's just calling it what it is. I urinate is weird. I would feel bizarre if my like 4-year-old was like, "Mom, I have to go urinate now." I'd be like,
"Yeah,
just say pee, you weirdo." But
well, she had no problem. I like also like she was saying boom boom like that.
These are the things. That's the thing about Karen and why I stand her, and I'm gonna have a rough season in defending this woman to a certain degree, but she has weird rules, set of rules for her life. They don't make sense,
you know,
but God love her.
When you're the 8th wonder of the world, you can do that.
That's what happens. It's exactly what
killed
happens.
me when she said that. She's like, how many wonders of the world? 7. So I'm the 8th. And then she was, especially in this group, they're obsessed with me. I was like, oh, Karen, like the delusion.
No, it's great.
It's what makes her
Delulu.
her. Yeah.
It's one of the best things. Okay, so Jacqueline, to me, in this episode, seems to be doing the most. She's doing what I feel like she should have done when she first joined the cast. It's just giving like catch up time with her trying to separate herself from Mia, even though she is Mia's best friend. I don't really get this energy from her. I don't think it benefits her.
I'm also very confused. So you're going to be like, no, I'm not her sidekick. She's like, look at me. Look at me. I'm not a sidekick. But then she was like jealous of Jazzy, implying that Jazzy is a better sidekick. Like, which one is it? And I mean, I do agree. Like, I about died when Karen was like, Jacqueline is oddly obsessed with Mia. Like, she was like, the way she said it and just her tone. But I'm like, yeah, like it's just like it was such a weird dynamic. Like, she was upset they were sharing a room, but then she wasn't. I don't know. Like,
she doesn't give main character energy. Like, we have had a lot of best friend duos on the show, and not one, like, I'm thinking come to mind Ramona and Sonia, because they always shared a room all the time.
Yes.
But you never felt like one was more obsessed with the other. It didn't give like this weirdness to it. And with Jacqueline, that's what I mean. I just feel like, girl, like, do you need the check? Like, why are you trying to prove yourself? Is this like all you got? I feel like you should just stand out for being you if you're so great and fantastic by stating that you're cooler and more than just Mia's best friend. It's not really doing you any favors.
Yeah, like when Jazzy's like, well, I was implying she has a better sidekick now. I would have come back with, well, I was never her sidekick, so I guess there was no competition. Congrats on winning. You know, like make it like a thing, like, okay, well, you can be that because no one's competing for it. I'm my own person. Like, I don't know. I just felt like it came into this weird, I was dying. Like, I made a note of it when they were saying, like, I think it was Giselle was like, they are fighting to be a sidekick. Like,
Yes.
this is
weird behavior. It's weird behavior.
Yeah, like, this is not what we are used to. And I do think that kind of like messed with Jacqueline. I also think we all, like, one thing I need to we all need to remember too, is she is still very much like in the throes of like postpartum. She does have a baby, you know, so like some of her maybe reactions to things like is some of like the hormonal. And I'm thinking of her fight with Karen that like randomly led her to tears, which I mean, Karen was very aggressive in her confessionals, but I didn't feel like I thought she just stated her case very firmly.
Yeah.
With the women around.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you know, I was a little bit more team Karen in that conversation. I can't defend all of things of Karen, but I was a little bit more team Karen in discussing in the way they brought up that scenario of she was drinking or whatever it may be. I felt like Karen held her ground pretty good.
I agree. And I think her crying kind of made it seem like, I don't know, like a little bit of a sign of weakness. Again, I was like, she might be hormonal. Do you think the choice of words backstabbing heifer was something you support, or would you have suggested possibly a different choice of words?
I mean, those are some fighting words. I think if she would have said that in her face, it would have caused an altercation.
Oh,
but I did get a chuckle out of it. I mean, Karen's quick with her words. It's hard to find with a quick-witted person. Something that I cannot get over, though, was the fact that the women were dressed for a yacht only to walk out to basically a speedboat or a pontoon.
A speedboat is being generous. It was a pontoon. Honestly, I think that was a tritoon. Wait, but I do want to go back to one thing with Karen. I do think she intentionally picked Jacqueline because she was an easy target. She did not really bring up much with Giselle, even when Giselle was confronting her. She doesn't really bring up much with Wendy, doesn't bring up much with Mia. Like, I do think Karen knew Jacqueline was an easy target.
Yeah.
And I think she was right. I think Jacqueline crumbled very quickly, which again, that's friend of energy. Like, you're not giving main cast, and just accept it.
I also think that is a seasoned housewife where in my mind it's Karen's like, I don't respect you. You're on the show because of Mia. You didn't really quite earn it on your own. So
You're fair game. Yeah.
I'm gonna remind you why that is. Sit down. That's kind of how I feel. The Grande Dame, if I were to channel her, that's definitely the energy she was giving.
But yeah, the outfits to go on a
Still can't get over it.
pontoon boat. I also was
It's so
confused
funny.
because
I'm like about to cry laughing thinking
I
about
mean, they were going like a tour of the lake and they're like, this is where the governor lives. Like, which I mean, cool. I mean, listen, you grew up in the Midwest, like you go on plenty of leisurely boat rides. And I love me some lake time and a boat, especially like sunset, like, but I felt like they had like some meat and cheese, but like, was there drinks? Like, I just felt like, what was the purpose of this? Was it just to be like, this is Lake Norman and look how beautiful it is? Like, I was very confused.
the juxtaposition of their outfits. Also, it wasn't like a yacht where you had to take off your shoes. You know how you always have to like
Yeah.
they're like struggling between the cobblestone, the wood planks of getting on there. And it was a little embarrassing. I feel like for probably the vibe they were going for. Again, nothing wrong with a little pontoon ride, but that feels like a daytime thing. Let's get some music, get a
Be in our swimsuit.
cooler, get in
Yeah.
our swimsuits, get a cooler. Like that feels more appropriate than this like sunset boat ride that was serving not a lot.
And then they came back to this like beautiful dinner with like special cocktails. So I'm like, we are all over the place. I can't figure out. I think this is very like a good representation of Mia, though. It's like
Yes.
certain details, very important. Other ones, not so much. The house, for example, everybody has an assistant to greet them for no purpose. Like just the appeal of having an assistant for everyone, but like they're not helping them unpack. It didn't look like they were taking the bags. They weren't greeting them with like a beverage or a cocktail or anything. It was like, so again, it's like this boat. It's like, well, we're on the lake. We're going to take a boat. But that was it. There was no other extra thought
I mean,
to
there's
it.
bigger boats. Like they could have gotten a
Yeah.
better boat. I mean, it's that I don't get. I mean, there's definitely we've been on boats in the lake. I've been on like a pontoon. You see larger boats. They could have gotten a larger
You got a
boat.
really nice boat. Also, I don't know. If I am on a pontoon, I'm with you. I want a cooler and I want either one of those big lily pad things that we're just going to drop the anchor and
Yeah.
we're all going to be, or I want to be pulled around on a raft. Going tubing on a lake is like, well, when you're younger, it's amazing. When you're older, I mean, the Grand Dame would probably like break a vertebrae, but it's a fun time. Like, I just feel like, I don't know. I feel like more effort could have been put into this.
Yes, I agree. The timing wasn't right, but it feels like they're there for like a night. But regardless, they could have done without it, in my opinion, and done something else. So let's get back. They get back, they get off the boat. Oh, I will say, on the boat, there was Ashley versus Stacy. Like that to me was like a moot point. What is your take on Karen just basically being like, Stacy, everyone thinks you're weird and boring?
I mean, and then I think it was Wendy who was like, no, we were just discussing that you're very uninteresting. I was like, oh my God. Like
Any better? Stiff, I think was the word that Mia
yes.
used or something like that.
I think there's better delivery. I think there's better ways. And I do think Stacey handled it really well. I will give Stacey credit. Like this entire episode, she could have very easily walked in and been really upset about the whole bunk bed situation. She wasn't. She was like, oh my God, I've always wanted a bunk bed. This is so fun. I mean, even turned like Kieran, I was like, okay, like I was kind of pissed, but like her energy, I'm liking it. She was making it something like good for her. I don't think housewives typically would have done that. And then even in this situation, like they were talking about like she's uninteresting. I think she like handled it really well and like recovered a little bit. And even Karen's like, see, this is the side of you that I like. And this is why we're friends. And which was also kind of like condescending in a way too. But
Yeah. She was
I
a
would
good
have been
sport about it. I think
was.
a good sport. And truthfully, she didn't have to be mad at Ashley. So I'm glad they like kind of quickly resolved it and
Yeah.
this didn't become linger on. So, they get back. There's a nice setup. It's also another thing that makes me laugh. And this is where I want like production to do their funny little thing. Is this is supposed to be Wendy's like birthday weekend, but it's really all about Mia. and Wendy keeps being like, hello, my birthday.
I know, like the bi-coastal drinks. And then that
All
wasn't
Mia's friends coming to join them. This, I will say, Miss Mia, this was a setup on La Dame, on my girl Karen. This was 100% a setup. You invited your friends to call something out on Karen. That was a setup. I didn't
Do
love
you think
that.
Karen said it, though? Do you think Karen butt dialed and said it?
I mean, I'd be naive, I think, to say no. I think there's been enough rumors, unfortunately, with Karen in like, was it Blue Eyes or like all these like cheating? It wouldn't shock me if there was more of an arrangement.
Agreed.
But I do think where there's smoke, there's fire. However, I do think in the way they approached her was definitely a setup to do this in front of on camera.
I think it was a setup for sure. I think there's truth to it. I think it comes up almost every season. I do think that, yeah, it's an arrangement, or Karen does have a guy on the side. And you know what? If it works for her and Ray, good for her and Ray. I do also appreciate Giselle bringing up the whole event with Karen. I don't know if Karen's never one to really say I'm sorry or I was in the wrong, as we're seeing with pretty much everything this season. But I do think it was really important that Giselle acknowledge, you and I had a conversation. You told me there was no conflict. You said you were going to be at my event. And then all of a sudden it turns into this big thing. And, you know, I felt like Karen kept focusing on the wrong thing. She's like, I arranged this transportation so that everyone could go, you know, like I was trying to assist people going to both events. And I think what Giselle was most upset about is like, you lied to my face. You should have just told me from the beginning, hey, I have an event, exact same time. This sucks. I kind of want the women at my event too. How do we make this work? You know, I feel like that would have been a little bit better received by Giselle. And I love how, though, Ashley's like, I'm just going to stay out of this.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, she supported Jizzy enough in that argument that she should stay out of it, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But that wraps up this week's Potomac.
Well, what do you think, though? We have a TBC.
How do you feel about this? This one actually feels more warranted to me.
I'll say more warranted.
For her reaction, like,
yeah, but I feel like we're using a lot of tricks early on. I'm losing faith. I think this is I don't think this is going to be a good season. I'm just going to say it now.
I will say, I think compared to last season and the whole NECA versus Wendy, I think will I say like, oh, Potomac is back. I do think we're going to get back to like in true form still. Like I'm still optimistic about it personally, because I've enjoyed it more so far, even with like the new random characters, seeing more of Jizzy and Wendy and Jizzy and La Grande Dame like interacting. I think there's still potential there.
Well, we shall see. Who's your shout out this week then?
My shout out I'm going to give right now. There is early voting and voting next week. I'm going to give it to all the people working the polls. I just think it's such a cool thing to devote your time to volunteer for it. Don't be a jackass to them. They're trying to do their best to get everyone in orderly fashion to go vote. So that is who I'm going to give my shout out to. I think it's a really cool that people take time out of their day and as a civic duty to do that.
Yeah, no, I think it is very honorable. Also, I feel like this year, I keep hearing like people are waiting like hour and a half for early voting. My strategy seems like everyone's early voting. I will be voting day of, because I'm at this point, like who's gonna be left to vote? I feel like I'm just gonna scroll right through.
I voted this morning and it was like 5 minutes in and out. Like it was pretty quick.
Oh my God. In St. Louis, it's like I had somebody who went today, waited an hour and a half.
Oh my goodness.
The shortest I've heard is 45 minutes.
Oh wow. I didn't realize it when I timed it this morning. I went as soon as they opened. And I was like, there was enough, like the whole process probably took 10 minutes for me.
Yeah.
But I just thought going on a Tuesday randomly towards the morning time, but I digress. Either way, if you are waiting a long time, be polite to those poll workers.
Yes. Well, just think how hard it is for them. Like, yeah, like they're just like bombarded constantly having to get through this.
Just be kind to the poll workers. I know this is I can't say it. Just be nice. That's all. I can't use my words. Don't be a jackass.
Well, I want to give my shout out to the Detroit Lions. I jumped on your bandwagon last year. I had so much fun. You guys embraced me with open arms. Sometimes fan bases get really annoyed when people like jump on the bandwagon and you guys are like, no, like this is a great time. Come on board. And I feel like the season, like I fingers crossed, I really think it's going to be Chiefs Lions in the Super Bowl. I would love that. And there's so many cool stories with this Lions team, with the players. Seriously, like if you want to go down a rabbit hole, there's very inspiring reels and TikToks out there. And it wasn't that long ago that they went 0-16. They lost every single game in a season. And so I don't know. Everyone loves a good comeback story. So I want to give my shout out to the Detroit Lions, and I hope they keep on winning and make it to the Super Bowl this year.
And with that, you guys know we're trying to reach our goal to get 5-star rating or written review. So for those of you who don't know how to do this, I'm going to tell you really quickly how easy it is to do. So all you're going to do is click out of where you're listening to our podcast. The audio should still be able to play. When you click on Real Moms of Bravo, and actually when you click on our podcast and scroll down to all the different episodes you can watch, you will see below ratings and reviews. There'll be an area for you to click, tap 5 stars, and then go ahead. You can see a little check mark box and write a review. You can write a written review. It is that easy. It will take you less time than me explaining it. So please do your due diligence. Eventually I'll find my words in the next episode, but while I'm trying to look for them, you go ahead and write us a review. And with that, make it a great day or don't. The choice is yours.